Hello all, Alison here, welcome back to Words and Pictures. We haven't done any Sunday swatching for a long time. I haven't had the time, even though it's one of my favourite things in the world to do. The Sunday swatching has sort of gone by the wayside, and because I wanted to have a little experiment today with doing some swatching using this Tim Holtz stencil, I thought I'd make it into a few minutes of fun instead. So instead of going out on Sunday, also Sunday's just too close to Saturday. You've only just had the Saturday video on Sunday, or if you'd like Saturday videos and Sunday videos, let me know in the comments below. But for now, we're going to do some swatching because it is fun. For me, it's some of the most fun. And I've got here some of the Art to Basic handmade watercolours. They're beautiful watercolours, and I was thrilled this year to be part of the Green Developer team and curate my very own shade of green. So this is Summer Leaves, because it's both the colour of summer leaves, but it's also the colour of those leaves just as autumn is starting to appear around the corner. And so summer leaves, you see, it departs. So Summer Leaves. And with that, I got hold of some Drunk Burgundy Violet. Is it Drunken Burgundy Violet? Drunk Burgundy Violet. And also Tranquility, which is a beautiful grey, and you know how much I love greys. So I thought I've obviously had a play with Summer Leaves before. You've seen Summer Leaves in action in a swatching video, in fact, which I can link to in the description below if you want to just focus on green for a little while. But I wanted to have a little play with these three together just to see what I can get in terms of interesting autumnal, maybe dusky colours I'm imagining it's going to be. So I'm going to start, as I always do, by giving the paints themselves a little spritz of water so that that water and the pigment can start to play nicely together. I might, yes, shall we have, yeah, I've just got my flooring underneath at the moment, but I think we might be advised to have the Teflon craft mat out, silicone craft mat. I'm not sure. It's some form of water resistant plastic. This is the Wow Premium Embossing Mat, and it's just a water resistant, also heat proof mat that just gives me a little bit of extra protection as I'm working on the desk. You can use a water brush for this, but I've got some nice watercolour brushes. These are silver black velvet brushes that I managed to pick up with coupons when I was working in the States. I worked over there regularly for several months at a time for several years in a row. And yes, art supplies are a bargain compared to many other places. So I'm going to start with just... This is my little collar swatching book. If you haven't seen any Sunday swatching, then you won't be familiar with it. If you have seen some Sunday swatching, you'll know some of what goes on in here. But yeah, I'm just going to start with the three colours, and then I'm going to have a little play with the stencil here. I'm just going to go away and blow my nose. I'm still at the point where I'm filming this, I'm still recovering from my cold. So I'm just going to blow my nose, have a good old cough, and then hopefully come back and be able to manage most of the video without needing to do that again. Back in a sec. Hopefully by the time you see this video, the cough will be a thing of the dim and distant past. Yeah, well, you know, a summer cold, and an end of summer cold, a cold just as summer leaves. Good, let's get Summer Leaves on the desk to start with, on the paper to start with. And yeah, so it's a really beautiful green which has darks in it. It has shimmering lights in it, so that autumnal light that just catches fire in the autumn sun is in there. So you can drop plenty of pigment in, but then also the joy of these paints is as you spread it across the page with some water, you get beautiful pigment just travelling, especially if you've got a nice textured paper. I'll zoom in just a little so that you've got a good view of what's going on. I don't want to come too far in because I want to leave the paints themselves visible up here. So that's just a starting point for Summer Leaves. Let's get a little bit of Tranquility on the go. So I'm just going to let the brush, it's such a meditative process working with watercolours. Just allowing the pigment to meld with the water and then allowing the brush to just really drink up what's there in the palette. Look at that. And as it spreads out, ooh, yeah, that's an amazing colour. Tranquility. I think we could probably take both of these a little bit further. I don't want to mix Tranquility into here just yet. I'm just seeing sort of foggy mornings down by the river. Just the dripping of water off the leaves into the river. That sort of misty late summer morning, just with the tang of autumn in the air. So let's spread that out into the page as well. Nice. And let's get some drunk Burgundy Violet on the go. Great name. Can't wait to see what this does. I know it's got a number of coloured pigments in it, so it should give us some nice granulation maybe as it opens out. Ooh. I can't wait to see what happens when we mix that with summer leaves and we get, I don't know what it'll be. It's going to be exciting though. That's 3 really beautiful colours. Definitely, I'm quite glad now that I haven't had time to play with these all summer because that's definitely saying end of summer, beginning of autumn to me. So I think I will just do a little bit of mixing direct on the mat here of Burgundy Violet. I just want a little experiment just to see what I get without... See, and here's the water resistant mat. You can see how the paint is beading up there. But that's fine. I've got enough to play with, and I just want to put a bit of summer leaves in there. See what kind of plummy sort of colour that gets me. Oh, it is. It's somewhere in a dusky rose through to a rust. But again, misty mornings and just a delight. Just a delight. I had a feeling I was going to love that, and I do. This is going to be exciting colour wheel when we get to it, and a little bit more. Obviously, mixing different proportions is going to get you different shades of that colour. But for now, I'll just go with a rough mix. I'd say it's about 50-50. Obviously, the Drunk Burgundy Violet is a really highly pigmented colour, so that's going to win, as it were, quite often in a mix with other colours. So you might want to give just a little touch of the Burgundy Violet and let the other colours come to the fore a bit more. So this is Drunk Burgundy Violet with Tranquility. It's a foggy day in London town. Anybody know that song? Wonderful song. Just get a bit more pigment, a bit more of the Tranquility. As you can see at the moment, this is a very random process. I'm not being very controlled about this, not being very controlled about my amounts, but I just want to get a sort of initial impression down onto the page. Because this sketchbook is bending, those pigments are really flowing all that way. So what have I not done? Summer leaves onto the mat there. Let's get a bit more of that. Because again, the Tranquility is also quite highly pigmented, so that's also going to be, it's a misty grey. I don't know if you can tell how happy I am about this. I thought it would be a fun mix, and it really, really is. It's sort of somewhere between fog and jewel colours as a collection. It's got a an amazing kind of shaping through. I'm going to add a little bit of drunk Burgundy Violet to that mix on the mat that is already Tranquility and Summer Leaves, so that I'm going for a three-way, as it were. Little bit of each in there now, and that should get me a really good grey. Yes, it does. Oh. How's that for a combination of colours to create a colour palette? Really, really beautiful. Really, really beautiful. So the little game I wanted to play was just to use this as a colour palette. And because I'm going to be coming up and down and in and out, I think I might be tempted to, for once, pop a bit of masking tape on my stencil and hold it still. I don't usually bother with doing that with stencils, but I think in this case it might be quite useful. So I'll be back with some masking tape in just a sec. Here we go. So this is just bog standard builder's masking tape. I'm not using specially light building tape. I'm not going to be terribly bothered if things run over between the lines. I want a sort of soft look, but I'll give it a fighting chance by pressing the stencil down and then attaching my masking tape. I don't want to press too firmly with the masking tape because it's just going to rip the paper when I go bring it up again. But that, yeah, that's a reasonable hold. I might put a little bit at this corner, and I might put a little bit at this corner. And then what I'm planning to do is go probably Summer Leaves, Tranquility, Drunken Violet. Ooh, see, no, what would be, well, I was thinking if I went here and here and here, then the in-between colour would be there and the in-between colour would be there. But that means the in-between colour for these two is going to be here and it's not going to quite be next to them. But does that matter? Do we mind? No, we don't. Let's just do it. I said it was an experiment and it is, because I haven't quite decided how I'm going to operate it. I think I might put the Summer Leaves somewhere right in the middle, and I'm now going to pick this up so I can get a really good firm hold. So just off camera here, I've got 2 jars of water. One I'm dipping in when I want clean water to mix up colour, and the other one I'm cleaning my brush in. So that's just sort of fairly standard, good watercolour practice. You might be able to see that there is a little bit of Drunken Burgundy Violet, I think, on my brush there. I'm going to start with the strongest pigment in at the middle here, and then I'm just going to head outwards, adding a bit of clean water to get paler towards the edges, and then just draw the pigment back. So you can see, because it's quite wet, things are going to go between the lines, and I'm fine with that because we're going to get really interesting mixes as that happens. So here's my sort of olive, acidy, Summer Leaves green, and I want to just allow the granulation to happen because there are pigments in this that will granulate very beautifully. So it's not a, again, it's not a precise art of I've got the most pigment here and the least pigment up here. I want that granulating roughness in all of those spaces. Good, that'll do for now for that one. I'm wondering whether what I really want to do is kind of graduate. That was Twilight and Olive, wasn't it? Yeah, okay, so Twilight and Summer Leaves. So if I go Twilight, Tranquility, that's because my brain's already decided what this colour is good for. And I guess I'm also sort of feeling that you get Drunk Burgundy Violet at Twilight as well. Because that's, yeah, sundown, time to pour the drinks. It's all very loose word associations in my head. So as I say, I'm deliberately keeping this really loose and just really playful. I'm not trying to create a perfect colour palette here because it won't be. I'm not doing all the things I should be doing in terms of measuring how much of the paint I'm using and how much I'm not. I'm thinking what I want to do is go via other colours to get to this. I feel like this one wants to be the furthest away from here. Or should I just go with... No, stick to what I originally thought I would do. And then on the next page, I can do something different. Wow, there's such a lot of pigment in this one. It's truly amazing. And yes, it's all traveling under the stencil. There's nothing I can do about it at this point, because the paint and the water are having a mind of their own, as they should. There's a marvelous channel on YouTube called The Mind of Watercolour, brilliant watercolour painter who does talk about how you have to let the paint and the water have a mind of its own, because it will just choose to move according to its preferences. And I sort of want to, while those paints are wet, pop a little splash of water just down onto the, for a little extra texture, to a little bit going in. This is going to take hours to dry. I'm probably going to have to come back tomorrow morning to show you where we've got to. So, time to mix up some colours on the mat again. So it's just as well I got the mat out. I'm just adding a bit of extra Summer Leaves pigment into here. I feel like I've got some Drunk Burgundy Violet going on here, because that green has already given itself quite a... So let's go Summer Leaves, and well, really we want to do Summer Leaves and Twilight first, don't we, because those are going to be drier than the Burgundy Violet. Let's start again. Summer Leaves, la la la, mix mix mix, put it down on the mat. Little bit of Tranquility. Did I say Twilight again? I did, didn't I? You're gonna have to watch me on that. It's clearly just a thing already in my head. Come back, Summer Leaves. Let's have a bit more of that. Yes, there we are. That's somewhere in between the two. So let's put it somewhere in between the two. And here's where that magical mixing that I was hoping for is going to happen. So now, instead of just travelling within its own colour, we're going to get automatic mixing happening sort of through the sides onto those colours. Let's get a little more pigment down into the middle here. It's so exciting seeing those new colours emerge. So down here we're going to be allowed to have Tranquility and Drunk Burgundy Violet. So let's mix that up on the mat. There's a bit of the Tranquility. Can you tell I'm saving my favourite colour till last? And there's some Drunk Burgundy Violet. And I think that needs a bit more Tranquility. So that's going to go down here. And it's actually giving us this time a really beautiful sort of deep purple. I'm adding a little more Tranquility because that's the one that seems to be overbalanced at the moment. And a little cleanish water. Not really clean anymore, to be honest. Let that spread out in that direction. And again, it is going to make its way under the stencil. In fact, I'm positively encouraging it then. And we'll get some interesting mixes going on there as well. And finally, into this gap, the mix that is really blowing my mind, which is this sort of rusty plum, dusky rose, rusty rose, dusky plum. So that's my Summer Leaves. Mixing up there. And I'm going to be quite gentle about adding the Drunk Burgundy Violet, because as I say, it's so potent. That's why it gets you drunk, you see. And let's pop that into the space in between. Oh, it's like magic. And there's something, I don't know what it is with me and melancholy. But there's a magic to melancholy colours for me. Melancholy colour palettes on the cool end. Just that sense of, I guess it's autumnal twilight. It's autumnal dawn. It's a foggy autumn day. It's saying goodbye to summer as summer leaves. Knowing there are winter days ahead. But I think it's also to do with, it was the start of school terms in September. And again, I'm just going to do a little spatter of water just to add texture to that. I can't wait to see how much or how little I've managed to preserve of the shaping underneath, or what we've got going in the ways of colour. But I am going to give that just a few minutes to work its magic without me. You can use a heat tool, of course, on watercolours, but they have less time to do what they can do if you do that. You're sort of stopping them in their tracks. Whereas these, oh look, we can see already there's greys creeping under the stencil here. And now I'm, deliberately encouraging the purples to do the same. So there's going to be a kind of mess under the middle. I'm really excited. In fact, I'm encouraging a spread under the stencil here as well now. Because I want it to happen. I want that sense of mixing and melding. And you can see we've still got the distinct colourways. But as I say, if you use a heat tool on these watercolours, the mixing and spreading and just natural granulation gets halted in its tracks. You might decide that it's reached a point that you really like and you want to try and hold it there. But I'm also noticing, let me zoom in for you, that there are places where the pigment is kind of creeping to those stencil lines. I kind of thought that it might. And so you're getting a really interesting effect where now you're going to get sort of outlining on some of these places. And if I had dried that already with a heat tool, I would lose that effect. So I will pause there and come back when things are a little bit drier. So I've given these a few minutes to continue doing what they're doing, and I'm about ready to peel the stencil back, I think, and let it dry without the stencil there, because there are places under the stencil that are simply not going to dry if I leave it there forever. So it's time to peel and reveal. I always love a good peel and reveal. Let's take the masking tape off there, and then I think the best thing is going to be just to flip this away and then peel the other bits away. Away it comes. Oh. And is there a magic about that, or is there a magic about that? I've decided I don't like what's going on just there, so I'm just going to knock it back a little bit, and then I don't mind it so much anymore. Beautiful. Just magic. Magic. I'm wondering whether I can get this, there's a little bit of watercolour paint on the stencil, and I'm just wondering if I can get a print off it, if I give it a little spritz of water and then just grab myself, do I want to do it in this book, or do I might want it somewhere else to play with, mightn't I? Grab a little, I'm just propping it up so the ink is not touching me anyway, the watercolour paper, the watercolours. La la la, watercolour tag. Okay, let's have one of you. Apologies for abandoning you. This is a distress mixed media stock, I think. I'm just going to see. I might not get enough colour to do anything with, in which case I can arrange to do something else later. But I think I might just get a little delicate, almost cobwebby print of watercolour down onto that tag. Let's see. Yeah. Really subtle, but really lovely. And it's got that very gentle ombre through from the drunk burgundy violet through to the greys and greens at the top. That's a bonus tag. That's a bonus background. And yes, of course, it'll want something additional doing to it. But at the moment, that's a lovely side effect of what's going on here. So the other reason I wanted to peel that away is because I did just want to do a little extra something on the rest of this page, which will be just to do some gentle, maybe circles, or maybe just colour patches, I suppose. And by that, all I mean is I'm going to get myself some pigment, pop it onto the page. Maybe it does want to be a sort of a circle. So that's summer leaves. And then into that, I'm just going to drop a tiny little touch of drunk Burgundy Violet. So I'm making sort of planetary shapes, and then from there I'll go drunk Burgundy Violet, just a gentle version of it, just a little bit of colour, so it's quite a watery drunk Burgundy Violet, and then into that I'm just going to drop a little bit of Tranquility and just let that do a bit of travelling. Then I'll take a little bit of Tranquility down here. Such a beautiful grey. I can't even work out whether it's a blue grey or a green grey, but either way it's doing wonderful things. Let's drop a little bit of drunk Burgundy Violet into that, so it's just the tip of the brush going down. Look how that colour is just moving there, kind of a magical game. Let's take some more summer leaves. And it's mid-September as I'm filming this, and I have to say I really hit the colour of the leaves. Bang on. Let's drop a little bit of Tranquility into there. In the meantime also, while that stencil paint was drying, you'll see I filled in my paint names over on this side, and apologies Americans, I've taken 2 L's in Tranquility in a very UK kind of way. What else do I want? I think I want some drunk Burgundy Violet here. Ooh, that's strong. So what's going to be able to take on that? Well, let's see, shall we? Let's see what happens if we let it be Summer Leaves, which, as we know, is a gentler kind of pigmented colour. But I think it'll... Ooh, yes, it will do something. Just creating a kind of sandiness in there, because that's that magic colour mix that gets us rust and plum and dusky rose. So you can see what I mean about allowing watercolours to do their work, to let the magic happen, because again, if I had dried all of these with a heat tool, nothing would be happening, at least nothing interesting. Let's go with a very gentle, watery Tranquility. More water. Yes, look at that beautiful, gentle grey. That's going to need to do a little bit of drying before I put more pigment in, because otherwise it's just going to run AWOL. Or I could nip out a bit of the water just with some paper towel. Just let that spread out a bit. And then maybe drop in some summer leaves into there. A real subtlety. Let's see how delicate a version of this I can get going. Just a little bit of pigment and then some water. Yes, lovely. Again, lots of water going on there, but that's all fine. I'm going to drop a little bit of the Tranquility into there. So it's the same thing I did up here, but different amounts of pigment, so it'll get me a different look. The September mowing of the lawns is going on outside. I don't know if you can hear that. So what do I want to put in here? I think we might go with a Tranquility, just because it's in my brush. And why waste it? and then drop just a little of the Burgundy Violet, just because it's such an exciting colour. Look, we've got room for one more little summer leaves up here, haven't we? I would say. A little bit more pigment. Nice. And into there I'm going to drop a little bit of Tranquility. Oh, what a lovely thought. I'm going to drop some Tranquility into it. Just let those shape themselves and move. A bit too much water going on here, so we haven't got as much exciting pigment work going on as I might like, so I'm going to add a bit more pigment to that one, just to let it do a bit more work. And I might add a little more of the Tranquility around the other side, just to beef up that planet. And again, I'm going to let those dry and come back and give you some close-up shots of the magic of the watercolour. In fact, having said that, you know what I want to do now? I want some little water droplets travelling. And in fact, yes, I really like the loosening of the edges of those planets so that they meet one another. Let's go mad with a bit of water splattering and let there be a bit more travelling going on. Because it's in the magic of how they blend themselves as well that some of this very often happens. And you can encourage it, or you can discourage it by drying the paper. But I think I'm in the mood for encouragement today, because I'm enjoying how these are sort of linking and mixing and moving. I can promise you that's not going to be the last time we use that stencil for some swatching. That's going to be happening again. I will, as I say, zoom in and show you some close-ups of that once it's a little drier, but I hope you've enjoyed those few minutes of colour fun with the swatching. Do leave any comments or questions down below, and if you've enjoyed it, leave me a thumbs up. I'd love to have your company on this creative journey, so subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and happy crafting all.